Now here's one of the primary tasks of a leader is to keep casting vision because it's like a cup with a hole in it. It keeps leaking out. There's something called the Nehemiah principle where Nehemiah, remember, he was building the walls around Jerusalem, and he gets halfway done, and the people are tired. They started off and they get the wall built halfway, and they're like, I don't think anybody can do this. They started off with passion. They started off with excitement. He'd already cast the vision, but 30 days later, he has to do it again. You have to continually do that. Now, as a new church starter, how do you do it? Well, you do it from the pulpit. It's one of the primary ways. You do it in small group meetings. You do it from the stage. You do it with staff. You do it with volunteer people. But you're casting the vision. Here's where we're going. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it's going to be like when we get there. Number 2 on page 5 is this. You got to determine the why behind the what. Those are some good questions to ask yourself. Why start a new church? Why now? Why in this city? Why am I? And when you answer those questions, it's going to help clarify, am I the person for the job?
You know, the why behind the what is that I think you also need to really, I would encourage you to journal just the circumstances that God brings your way and the kind of people He brings in your life, because they are going to use, God's going to use those people in order to, to do this. Matter of fact, when I was struggling so badly about if I was going to plant this church or not, I went to lunch with a guy one day, was at our church in South Alabama. We're sitting at Ruby Tuesdays, and we were talking about church, and nobody in my entire church had any idea I was thinking about leaving and planting a brand new church. Nobody except for my wife. And I knew I knew she hadn't told anybody. And we're sitting there, and I mean, I'm struggling. I'm toiling. I'm wondering, God, are you really in this? I just want to make sure that you're in this. And 2 events took place. Number 1 is that I'm sitting there with him at lunch, and he looked at me and he said, you know, to be honest, if you really wanted to do church right, you really need to start one yourself. Okay, God, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you loud and clear. And then, as I'm almost to the edge of fixing to, I wasn't sure if I was fixing to step into the promised land or step off the cliff, you know. And I can still remember on a Sunday night, we had church on a Sunday night, and I was fixing to preach, and my wife just turned to me and looked at me, and she said, if you don't do this, you're going to miss God completely. And 5 years from now, you're going to be the saddest person knowing you should have went, but you didn't. And so, you know, you think about the why behind the what is that why now, why you, where to go. And, you know, when I talk to people is that it's amazing when they talk about planting a church is that I see this too often where people just want to plant church really where it's comfortable for them. And they really don't look at where's the greatest need. I've been telling people for so long that when people come to me and say about planting a church, I would say to them, you may tell where you ought to start planting a church. And they said, where? And I said, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Are you from there? I said, no, I've been there once. I did a wedding there once. And I said, in a span of like a day and a half, I led 2 people to Christ. And after I led them to Christ, I asked them the same question. Where do you go to church? I know the only church around here is a Catholic church. And I'm thinking, I mean, you talk about, you know, Henry Blackaby's statement, you find out where God's at work and you join him. I think if you're going to plant, you need to make sure that you understand the why behind the what.
It's all a part of calling. Number 3 is this. Write a simple purpose statement. 3 characteristics there: short, clear, and memorable. Habakkuk 2 says, the Lord answered me, write down the vision, write it clearly on clay tablets so whoever reads it can run to tell others. A purpose statement, and we're fixing to get into core values, it's kind of like a compass. It's not a roadmap. It doesn't tell all the details of the turns. It's not a GPS. It tells, you know, where to go exactly. But it points the right direction. And it helps you stay in the right direction, and it helps the people that are following you stay in the right direction. Guy Kawasaki has a good quote there. It says, forget mission statements. They're long, boring, and irrelevant. No one can even remember them, much less to implement them. If you grew up in church, you've probably been a part of some planning retreat sometime with some church board, some church council, where you went away for the weekend or something. You came back with this long, complex piece of paper or document, and you were so excited about it, and then it just got filed away somewhere. We've got to be careful about that. Purpose statements should be short and to the point and really descriptive of where you're going and what you're doing. The exercise of creating a purpose statement is more for you than your people. You got to do the hard work. This is the preparation stage. You got to do the prayer work. You got to do the thought work, investigating, and say, what kind of church are we going to be? What's that going to look like? What is our mission in this city, in this area?
Why don't you share your purpose statement, what your church does?
You know, ours is not original at all. I told you Saddleback had such an impact on us. We went out to Saddleback and I read the Purpose Driven Church book, and I started working on mission statements. It took about 6 months to write this document. We're going to talk about in a little bit, a church plant proposal or master plan. And I was toying with purpose statements, and finally I said, Jennifer, here, the Saddleback statement is what we're doing. That's what we're doing. So we just adopted that. And then we thought we needed something a little bit shorter because it goes around the bases. We do the bases, the diamond, and things like that. But we made ours connecting people to God. It's what all the bases are about for us. And we have it on T-shirts, and people say, you know, they've kind of, it's become this little mantra around Harvest. What are we about? You know, we're connecting people with God. Everything that we do, whether people know Christ or they're far from Christ, we were trying to help them get closer. What about you guys?
Well, ours is pretty simple as well. I mean, because ours is the Bridge Fellowship exists to be relevant as we lead our generation to become passionate followers of God. So, I mean, ours is real simplistic. You know, you've heard it said it ought to fit on the back of a T-shirt. Yeah. And you ought to be able to remember. And I'll tell you that, I mean, maybe this is just a bad leadership in our church, I don't know. But I think if you asked 75% of our people, they wouldn't have any idea what our mission statement is. They wouldn't have our purpose statement, they have any idea what our purpose statement is. But we do live that out, you know, in making sure of that. You know, and we talk about those, the purpose statement is for you and for your people. The thing that I would say is that, okay, if it's really true that you want to be relevant as you lead your generation and become passionate followers of God, I want to say that whatever your purpose statement is, it's got to be happening with you. If it's not happening with you, it won't happen with your staff, and it won't happen with your leadership, and it's not going to happen in your church. So if I'm saying that we want to be relevant to lead our generation, okay, then I got to make sure that my life is showing that people know that I am going after people that are away from God. So make sure that's not just something you put on paper, but make sure that it is who you are. You know, it's about reaching, it's about discipling, connecting, as Jim said, with His. So I just to encourage you to make sure that's got to be happening with you.
Number 4 is similar. It's create a list of core values. Now, when we first started, I really didn't sit down and put down a list of core values because I thought, I don't know. I mean, I've got this thing, and it's just like vision. At least for me, I don't know if you guys are like this. Vision was kind of like a Polaroid. You remember Polaroid cameras where you took the picture and then it was fuzzy, and then it started getting clearer and clearer? That's how vision has often been for me. Core values are this DNA, this stuff within you that are the things worth fighting for. We don't move on core values. Here's who we are, here's what we do. Values will define the church's culture and its uniqueness among the other churches in your area. And core values are the non-negotiables of the church. It's your DNA. It's your culture. It's who you are. There are some samples there. At Harvest, we have some others that we've added. One of our core values is be friendly first. We tell people that on the weekends. One of the greatest emotions people have come to church for the first time is fear. They're terrified. They don't know if somebody's going to pull out a snake, or they don't know what's going to happen, especially if they didn't grow up in church. And so they're coming with a lot of apprehension. So we tell people, be friendly first. You got any? What are some core values? You guys got any?
Yeah, we do. You know, and as we were going through ours, doing ours, you know, one of the ones that I would share that we have is that we really try to be creative and understand where I live. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Music city capital of the world, really. So music is a huge event that takes place constantly in the city of Nashville. And so the one thing that happens is that, you know, a lot of times we will do a secular song. And with a secular song, it might introduce my topic. We might do a whole set of secular songs, but it all flows together. And understand that one of ours is that, you know, we have one of ours is an unchanging message, but our methods have to change. And let me tell you, this is where other people that in established churches is that they sort of get off of the boat, I think with you, they just go, I can't believe that you would do a secular song.